So prior to the tour, I wasn't a huge fan of Chinese food. The experiences that I'd had, I guess, were probably a bad impression of Chinese food because I'd only gone to really dodgy Chinese takeaway restaurants. Like, because I live in Southport, there's heaps of Chinese takeaway restaurants around because does have a Chinatown and quite a prominent Asian culture in the area that I live in. And I've tried a few of them and I thought, this is okay. But there's been heaps of other Asian cuisines that I far more prefer, such as like Vietnamese or Thai. I just thought the vegetables were more fresh. And I found that all the Chinese dishes were predominantly meat-based and they didn't have any vegetables mixed in with it, like the stir-fries that you get in Southeast Asia. And so I thought, okay, I'm not really a fan of Chinese food. I'm not going to like the food on the tour. And I was actually quite concerned that, I'd be like really fussy and I wouldn't want to eat any of the food that was on the trip. However, I did have the expectation that the food in China was better. I was holding out for a hope that it would impress me, and the food that I've been having in Australia was just heavily westernized, and that turned out to be true. Everything was so much more spicy. All the ingredients were super fresh. People were cooking it straight off the market. They would just go get their fresh fruit in the morning for the restaurant and then just cook it that day. So all the greens are really nice and fresh, and they actually used a lot more vegetables in the dishes than what I've found in Australia. And there was actually I was probably eating greens every meal of the day, which is amazing for me. This was probably one of my favorite experiences of the whole tour, and it really changed my perception of China and the cuisine itself and how easy it actually is to cook their food. I thought, oh, okay, this stuff won't be like anything I can replicate back home. All the ingredients will be too bizarre, or the technique will just be too weird. But really, all you need, the recipe that we did was the Xinjiang noodles, the hand pulling. And for the noodles, all I needed was flour, water, and a little bit of salt. And I've done that twice now back home, and it's actually really fun. In Australia, in Western countries, we tend to throw out a lot of food, like parts that we don't want to use. Say, for example, in China, like if you're going to cook up a chicken, literally every piece of that chicken will get cooked up in some way or other. In China, they're going to eat any of it. And surprisingly, I found when we were in Langzhou and we did the food bingo night, all that stuff actually tastes good. You just need the right spices on it. There's a few photos here of my friends and I trying these ingredients. So we had the pig's brain, the pig's tail, and the goat's foot. Wasn't a fan of the goat's foot, but I really enjoyed the pig delicacies, and I thought they're actually really nice, and I'd be interested to try some more of that stuff back home now. So I thought, China has all these weird ingredients, like they're going to cook me up like weird dog and like octopus and all these disturbing like seafood animals and stuff. But a lot of it was really enjoyable, fresh produce that I just thoroughly enjoyed, and it made me really appreciate Chinese culture for what it is and how rich all the different dishes are. And you'd go to each region and say, we go from the north to the west into the ethnic minority groups such as the Tibetan people, and then down to Shanghai. The cuisines between each area vary so much, so their cuisine reflects the area that they are and what produce that they can source from the area. So for example, we got a lot of yak meat in the Tibetan areas. In Gansu, in Beijing, we got the duck. That's a local delicacy for them up there, and it was a lot of big portions in there. And then we went down to Shanghai, where people are more business-like, so the meals were smaller and they had a lot of seafood, and it was really gorgeous fresh food because it's obviously a coastal city, so they're just pulling all that fresh seafood straight in and it's going straight into the pot. So just quick shout out to the New Colombo Plan. Thank you for sponsoring me for this tour. It was amazing. To Griffith University for running the program. To Grace and Rowan, you were amazing on this trip. We couldn't have done it without you. And then finally to the Hutong Education for providing us such a unique experience. The things that we got to do on this trip, I know that we would not have been able to do on our own, and even just a normal tour group taking tourists through. It was definitely a very highly educational experience, and I feel very privileged to have been.